Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to interview Alan again. So, Alan, welcome, man.
Yeah, hello. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, it's been a few of them and enjoy it every time.
Yeah, for sure, man. Always happy to have you. I think the first time I interviewed you was back in 2018. I think you were like my first like 10 people that I've interviewed. Um,
OJ.
can you before I ask you the questions, can you let everyone know what your full type is for those who don't know you?
Yeah, sure. So it's an ENTJ jumper, double masculine. So play, consume, sleep, and blast last.
All right, man. And since I interviewed you back in 2018, I know obviously you kind of came in the YouTube channel several times in between. What was the biggest change in yourself that you've noticed if you had seen anything?
Yeah, right. I must say, actually, that's not something I've asked myself. I have to think about it. Okay. I I think that there is two factors. So externally, there is certainly a greater trust in the people around me, a greater belief in good faith, and I see that visibly returned quite often actually through feedback, which is pleasing. Internally, there is definitely a more concrete ability to share and crystallize identity. I'm not trying to use buzzwords of OPS or personality systems, but that's how I describe it, identity. So things that I'm proud or aware of to associate as characteristics of what I bring to the table. I'm definitely a lot more confident, open, quick to communicate.
Did you used to perceive everyone as kind of more threatening as opposed to trustworthy as when you were younger and whatnot? Because you said now you're more trusting with others. So
Yeah, I mean, look, when I was young, I used to regularly have dreams of people chasing me, people out to get me, dying. Those were recurring dreams. They weren't nightmares, but they were recurring dreams. I definitely don't have those these days, but those dreams extended into reality where I wouldn't say on a day-to-day basis I'd meet an average person and perceive them as threatening. What I'd say is when a situation that overlapped with me occurred that was unfavorable for me, I immediately assumed it was malicious and intentional,
oh, interesting.
not coincidental. Well,
I
that's the
see.
shift. Yeah.
Wow. So you used to think people were out to get you on purpose, like they had like a
Yes.
personal vendetta against you.
Yes.
And what
Yes.
happened? What shifted where you kind of realized, oh, people are not out to get you. They're just maybe being stupid or something, or they're having a bad day, you know?
I would say for me, a lot of my ability to empathize. I think that's the right word. Not sympathize, empathize. Wait, what's the difference between empathize and sympathize? One of them is you have experienced it before, and one of them is you imagine what it's like. Anyways, that doesn't matter. For me to be appreciative of other people's challenges and constraints, I've had to somewhat live my own and recognize, geez, I've been left with a great choice. And quite often I'm thinking of me and those choices, not the impact on others. And so collateral then exists. And when you observe that, you recognize where everyone else is in those situations too. So yeah, I don't doubt there are some people that are specifically malicious or have a vendetta against me, but the percentage is nowhere near. I used to think it was like 95%. Now it's probably more like 5 to 10.
Yeah, that sounds more realistic. Like you're hearing that. Um, you said that you used to have recurring dreams that people that you're someone's chasing after you or someone trying to kill you or something. I
Mm-hmm.
remember I was talking to a psychologist about this because I work in fitness, and I had a client who's a PhD psychologist, and he said that when you have dreams, it's not the context of the dream per se, but it's like the emotion behind the dreams that you have to like watch
Mm.
out for. Because I used to have dreams too, people of like zombies trying to kill me, but then when I looked at the emotion behind it, I was excited. I was like, oh shit, I get to fight zombies. That's kind of sweet, like shooting them with shotgun and stuff, right? So it's like so that's kind of what you have to watch out for because like the context itself might not be what's actually happening. So what was the emotion that behind those dreams when someone trying to chase after you or kill you, was it like a negative emotion or was it a positive emotion?
Well, look, in pre-phase, I'm not one to recall many dreams, right? Like literally in a whole year. And this hasn't changed. But if anything, I probably recall less dreams as I've gotten older. But at the young age when this was happening, I still might only recall maybe 10 to 20 dreams out of the 365 in a day. It's a really, really small percentage. And because they weren't nightmares, there weren't things that the short answer is I don't know the emotions, right? And the reason being is the frequency wasn't very high, and then when I do recall them, it was still quite a neutral state because it wasn't a nightmare.
Oh,
Like my 5-year-old, he occasionally wakes up with nightmares and he's trembling, traumatized. It's just a different body response. Whereas like for me, I've woken up, I'm a morning person, so I wake up ready to go. Like, so for me, I've got the recollection of what happened in the night, but then I just carry on.
okay.
But what I can say is to reframe the question slightly differently. Instead of the emotion of the dream, the emotion of some of the events happening in that time that had some parallels to the dream, that out to get you from other people, that was intense. That was very intense, and a lot of plotting, scheming, all that type of stuff. A lot of chess moves. They're going to do this, I'm going to do that. Blah blah blah, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, to be honest, which is not a favorable or positive thing to say.
Right.
It just cements the us versus them mentality even further.
Oh, I see. So you're saying this happened to you in your waking life, the chess pieces and whatnot. It's not the dream per se.
Yeah. Correct. The dream was actually much simpler. That's usually like you're in a building and you're on the rooftop. There's nowhere to escape. You
Right.
either jump off, you die, or they get you.
Oh, I see.
Lose.
Gotcha. That's crazy, man. To even
And
think that.
that's from like 20 years ago now. So like it's very, very faint impressions or imprints that I recall. I haven't had a dream like that for a long time.
What about the stuff that you mentioned in your waking life though, where it's like a chess piece, like someone's deliberately out to get you, but they're like very calculative about it. It it,
Yeah,
it almost sounds like it's also your demon and I talking. It's like demon and like NI is like planning, right? So it's like, they you live in a moment, but they're planning something. Those mofos they got a few chess pieces ahead of me.
Well, I mean, look, fundamentally, I don't believe a lot of things are pure coincidences. In the sense of like, so what I mean is, let me reframe. I believe a lot of people's actions, there's intentionality, whether it's consciously driven or subconsciously. The event itself is intentional, but the consequence and impact to others, including myself, is often unintentional or inconsidered. I actually forgot your question. Sorry.
It's all good, man. Um, okay, so I guess you're trying to say if someone had a plan, it might not be positive, but
Yeah.
it wasn't targeted towards you per se. You were kind of like in the wrong place, the wrong time. Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, there was one specific place I worked where there's two specific places I've worked where I felt I've had a rival, and not started by me. I picked up things that they were doing to compete with me. And so when I've observed that, then I've changed the perspective to rival. Whether they had that or not, I don't know. But like, it's so funny, like thinking about this stuff from like, again, now this is 10 to 15 years ago, somewhere in that period. It was around 2008. Yeah, so 15 years ago. No, it was around 2011. Myself and another person, we were not juniors, we were the next level up from a junior in our profession, and we were same age, fighting for the same type of promotion opportunity. So I guess rival does fit into this story, but like just even things like he lived in the city, we worked in the city, so for him the natural thing was to come in late, finish really late. I've always been more of a family-based person, so I prefer to come in early, finish early.
Right.
But like I noticed over a period of time, he would start trying to come in earlier than me. Now, I naturally, my natural disposition is to take that as a challenge. Maybe he had life events that required him to actually bulk up his hours. I don't know, but like for me, that's not even a consideration. It's like, oh, you're trying to go into my space, and then you start looking at other things they do, and like I said, it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
Because now every move they do is something that antagonizes something I do, and so you actually find sources of conflict, whether they were true or not, and it feels so real that you don't question it. And then obviously you also look for sycophants, people when you share this perspective with, they agree with you. If they don't, you ignore them until you keep on talking to people and they say, oh yeah, this guy, he's trying to rival you, whatever. And I mean, these examples look small, but that's because that's what they are. They are small. I did have one, I would, even now with where I am today, I'd say was a legitimate rival. That was from like 2015 to 2018, around that period of time. I never looked at him as a rival, but I'm confident he looked at me, and that's based on even today. There's some information I'm aware of about how he's acted in response to some things with me. I go, yeah, this guy definitely has a problem with me. And like we said, that 5 to 10% of cases legit. So
right, of course, there is such thing as there is a legitimate case for that. So for the first case, did you win the rivalry? Did you get the promotion over the other guy, or did he get the promotion over you? Because you're both vying for the same promotion, right? That's kind of what you said.
I think we both won, to be honest. And that's not trying to look at a cheap out of the question. I'm happy with where I am today. It worked out for me. In regards to the promotion, in the end, the company folded.
Oh,
right. So he actually stayed on longer with the company than me. So, like I said, depending on where you want to cut your view of start to finish, you can say he won, I won, we both won. But yeah, I mean, in the end, I got a redundancy payout, so I'd say I won.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a win-win situation for both you guys. And at that point, you weren't competing anymore,
Yeah, no. I'd stopped competing long before that. I mean, for me, it was great. I was a young professional. I got to work overseas. So this was a project in the Middle East. I was based there for a little bit.
Which
saw
country?
some amazing things. It was in Oman.
Oh, Oman. Okay.
So,
cool.
but yeah, we did the design work in Dubai, and then the construction commissioning was in Oman. And like for me, it was a great eye opener and it opened a lot of doors for me. So I could never say I lost from it. I learned a lot.
Did you like the competition personally? Are you a competitive person?
No. So I grew up in a competitive household culture. Definitely that was something my dad wanted to ingrain in me, and it was part of the conflict I felt growing up as I've moved away from home and discovered my own sense of self-worth and being.
Right.
That juxtaposition. I don't want to use too many big words, but that's really what it was. You've got this sense of, like I said, household culture of who you are being raised to be, and then how you actually really feel about things. And so, no, I am competitive, but it's more about integrity, doing the best I can, as opposed to beating others. So it's self-driven competitiveness, and it can overlap with others, but I've got a line and I don't cross it. Everyone has a line and they don't cross it. My line is not as high as people you treat as ultra competitive.
Right. Last time I spoke on Facebook, I kind of mentioned to you that the objective personality, they have the social types now. I don't know if you got a chance to take a deep dive. They're also doing a thing now. I don't know if you're aware of it. They're doing like live thing now. So Shan does like a live teaching in the class, and then she'll get people in and she can ask her questions live.
So not a live typing, live
it's like a
where they
class.
explain
It's
someone's
like a live
title.
class. Yeah. Instead of like pre-recorded classes, it's actually a live class with
wow.
with like
OPS University, huh?
Sorry?
OPS University.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, OPS University. That's right. And it was pretty cool to see because they talked about certain things that they're seeing pattern wise, like the love language, for example, is correlated with the social type as well. Like so if you're social type 1, which is it's all about competition, being the best, number 1, and then your savior social type would be 2 also, which is, you know, responsibility for others, self, jack of all trades, you know, desiring independence. And then their demon would be specialization, which is all about routine, just focusing on one thing, getting really good at that one thing. And then
I'm a number 2. I don't need the rest. I'm a number 2.
Yeah. And then number 4 is friends. It's all about friends.
Wait, sorry, what was number 3?
Number 3 specialization. So you're like
yeah,
like think of like you know, like you know, a dentist that specializes on root canal, for example, right? And that's all they do their whole life is root canals, right? Or like a plastic surgeon, you know, like nose jobs only, right? You know, so it's like that kind of deal, right? Like they do the same thing for the rest of their life, but they're the best at it, you know. So anyways, so well, Dave is a 2.
Sorry, what was number 4? What was number 4?
4 is friends. It's all about friends.
Friends.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not me. Yeah.
No. So if you're 2, you automatically have friends as a savior. So if you're 2, you do focus on being the jack of all trades, having independence, all that stuff, but you also have savior friends. So that's kind of like the thing. So it's kind of like the sexual modalities. That's the best way to look at it. You know, if you're like audio, the opposite is visual, right? And for you, you're kinesthetic, then the opposite would be tester. So 2 and 3 are the opposite. So if you're all about responsibility, then your opposite is specialization. And if you're 1, you're all about winning, then the opposite is friends, right? You know, like they say, it's lonely at the top, right?
Oh, okay. So you're saying, so there's 2 coins, and each half of the coin. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then you have
that's how I'm internalizing it. Yeah,
exactly. Like, you know, like your kinesthetic audio, right? So audio is also a savior, and then you have access to visual, and then tester would be the hardest, supposedly, right? You know, so that's kind of how they structure it. But they also figured out like, oh, it looks like depending on your love language, you can kind of pinpoint which one you are. So if you're number 1, your love language is words of affirmation. If you're 2, it's acts of service. Number 3 is gifts, and number 4 is quality time. So and it kind of coincides with also your social type, because you essentially have 2 saviors, right? So if you're 2, for example, then you'll want acts of service, or you also give acts of service to others. But then because you're also savior friends, then you also like quality time. So, you know, and
you know, the irony here is like my partner and I, we often talk about love language as a joke thing.
Yeah.
But like the where we've concluded is, my 2 is acts of service and quality time.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's funny.
Is that your love language? Those 2?
Definitely, it's definitely acts of service.
Okay. Got it.
Because I won't give you my time unless I want to.
So this is what David Shan said about 2s. It's kind of funny. So unlike 4s will become friends with everyone. 2s have a lot of friends also, but they're more selective with their friends. Unless they're one of those friends that they made when they were young, and they might be like not the, you know, sharpest. I don't know what's the word for the sharpest knife in the drawer, but they because they knew them since they were kids, they're kind of stuck with them. It kind of drags them down too. Kind of sad to say that, but you're kind of stuck with them, so you still have quality time with those people even if they're dragging you down. And they were talking about the weakness of each type. So they said the weakness of the 2 is they're not willing to drop some of those older friends to get ahead like the number 1s would.
Oh, I have.
You have dropped.
But, you know, so like I had I don't have that many friends to begin with, firstly, or like I'm talking about like people that know beyond the facade. Not that I'll carry a facade, but what I mean is they shared experiences. Like they're not just people that are water cooler chat. You know, you've actually had conflicts and adventures that you can share together. That type of bonding. I don't have that many people, but there's one person that I've been a very deep friend with since, well, close to 20 years. Literally 20 years, and he was my best man at my wedding. Giving heck of a speech. I'm really glad. But that aside, I cut him off as a friend about 2 years ago, actually. You know, part of that thing that you're talking about. But we actually reconnected last year, and I can't say I ever consider what it's like for him when he sees me now, but I don't think about it at all. Worked out quite well. So all I'm saying there, Kendrick, is you can cut off people, but that doesn't mean it's the end. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, right. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Sorry, I just felt the need to share that.
I think I'm a 2 also. I look like a 4. People in the community think I'm a 4. But I asked Dave and Shan, they think I'm either 2 or 4. They're not sure yet. When I asked them, I do think I'm a 2 though, because I'm kind of like acts of service first. That's the one that, like, when they showed those slides, I was like, I'm not quality time first. I'm acts of service first. Quality time is second. Quality time is second. Like, people who help me in my business, they're the ones that I treasure, relationship wise. Like, those people are the treasures to me. You know, if I'm just hanging with people, just having fun, I do like that still, but it's second. It's second to acts of service. Like, I don't.
Why are you not why would you not consider yourself a 3? Not that I have that read on you, but you've been doing the spin class thing as a specialization for a very long time. Your core business interest has remained in the same field for a very long time. I wouldn't be able to commit to that as you have.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's because if you look at me from just that lens, then it looks like I'm specializing on those things. But if you actually take a zoom out, you'll see that I'm not just teaching spin. I'm doing in my day job, I have personal training. I have spin. I watch over the fitness facility. Then I work as a recruiter, which has nothing to do with fitness whatsoever. So right now I'm doing recruiting for travel nurses, but before I was doing recruiting for security guards. And then on top of that, I have a travel blog that I write articles for. On top of that, I have a YouTube channel for travel. And then I have the personality YouTube channel, which has nothing to do with travel and the other stuff. And then for the travel stuff, it's even further, it's even more broad, because I talk about collecting countries. I talk about credit cards. What does collecting country and credit cards have to do with each other, right? They're like completely different topics. So if you look at it from a more like a top-down perspective, it's like, oh my God, he's doing so many things that has nothing to do at all with each other, which is not what specialization do. People who specializes would only be doing one of those things, but like at a really deep level.
Yeah. So if you, I'm trying to think of an example, and this might not be a good one, but just on the spot, I apologize. But like, if you've got the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you've got one director, and all he directs is Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Is that an example of specialization? I'm trying to deduce this. Or do you have an example of specialization?
They like to use Jordan Peterson as an example in the class, because apparently he's been doing psychology forever, and he's still doing psychology right now, and also fighting the social justice stuff. And even right now, he's still doing it, and it's been like so long already. I'm like, why doesn't he switch gears? How come he's not talking about any other topics outside of this? It's the same topic, for so many years now, right? So
but that's where, like, I'm not. That's where I'm struggling with. Like I say, I didn't take you as a 3, but like, appreciate you talk about a lot of different topics within travel.
Yeah.
But then you could say Jordan JP talks about a lot of different topics within psychology. So the same brush. Yours is travel. He's a psychology. He's a specialist. I'm not seeing where the divide is.
Well, he has psychology, and then there's different stuff within psychology, right?
Yeah.
But I have multiple umbrellas. I have travel. I have personality. I have fitness. I have recruiting.
Yeah. Okay. No. You're right. Yep.
Yeah. So So if you look from an umbrella standpoint, then that's kind of where you would see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Plus also, so threes, they don't like taking responsibility for other people. So they're only responsible for that like one thing, right? If you try to make them do something else, they cannot pivot and they don't want to pivot and they don't want to help. To them, it's like, that's not my job. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's not my job.
Yeah.
But if you're a two and someone asks you for help in another department, you're more inclined to go help out. You're like, okay, sure, why not, right? Like, like
Yeah.
you have that mindset of like a manager or supervisor.
Yeah.
And then I remember for me personally, when I got a job for the Canadian election working as a supervisor, and it was like a job made in heaven. I was like, oh my God, why didn't I do this sooner? Holy shit, it was like the perfect job. I was managing 15 staff members working in election, and I was delegating the tasks that they're supposed to do. And I kept getting compliments from them. They're like, oh my God, because of you, we have breaks. We never had breaks with the other supervisor. I'm like, oh, sweet. And I felt good that like, my staff were taken care of. And because they were taken care of, they were doing the best that they could for the public, right? So we were able to put out a lot of fires when the public were going crazy, especially when the lineup got really long. So
yeah.
So and then like there's also deciders. I remember it was so funny. There was deciders working there, and then they were looking at me with awe because I was doing public speaking at the start of the thing. I was like, okay, everyone gather up. I'm gonna talk to you all about what's gonna happen today. And all of the deciders were like, whoa, my God, I can't believe he just did that. And I was like, what's the big deal? I'm just talking to people. Piece of shit. Like, it's not, people are not scary, but I'm not an insider, right? So what's scary for me though was the paperwork. At the end of the day, we had to do paperwork. Oh my God, those damn deciders, they were so good at it. I was like in awe, man. Like I didn't even know how fast they did it. Like, because we had to tabulate all the votes and stuff. And I just shut down. I mentally shut down at that point. Like I did really good until that point. Then I was like, I was garbage. Because I'm SI at the bottom, right? So
yeah.
So yeah. But see if I was a four, then I don't want to be in a leadership position, like ones and twos tend to gravitate towards leadership position, while threes and fours tend to prefer to specialize in a specific role. And like they did a class on an Egyptian bodybuilder. I think they call him Big Ramy. Have you heard?
Ramy? Yeah, I know Big Ramy.
Yeah.
So I don't know the class though, but yeah.
So anyways, he's a four, and apparently his coaches were getting upset at him. I'm like, dude, what the hell are you doing? You're so talented and you have the genetics to win. Why are you just hugging all the freaking other bodybuilders and making friends and stuff? He doesn't give a shit about winning, right? So they had to like push him to win, and he did win twice, I think. Mr. Olympia.
He came fifth this year.
Yeah. And it's like, but they had to push him. They had to like tell him, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You need to, so like,
that's hilarious. I can see what you're saying, and the opposite sides. Oh wow, okay, this is quite fascinating, I must say. You've raised my curiosity enough that I'd actually consider this as plausible. Before I thought it was just a shitty tack on. Very limited. I'm saying no. This is interesting. Okay,
it's still open though. They haven't finished it yet, so it's still work in progress. So it's good that they're doing it open. Like they just send it out to the public, to the community as open as possible to get more feedback, to get more data in. Obviously the community helps build up the system, right? But I think one of the things that they said was super interesting is like a lot of people are there's just as many ones as fours, which is crazy, right? But
makes total sense.
What's that?
It makes total sense. I would have thought there's more fours than ones.
Yeah, because it seems like because fours they just want to be happy and have friends, right? But there's
also the social pyramid. The hierarchy of
Right. No, it makes sense from a social pyramid standpoint as well, as you just said. But they said that a lot of ones actually suck. That's why they're not number ones. Because like a lot of fours, they have the talent, they just don't have the drive, right? So it's all about the social hierarchy is all about the drive, essentially. So the ones they have the most drive, like when you compete with them, they're relentless. They want to win no matter what, right? But if they don't have the skill set behind it, it doesn't matter how relentless you are. If you don't have the talent, you're not going to win, right? You still need the talent. And a lot of the twos, threes, and fours are very talented. That's why a lot of twos and threes and fours end up in the number one spot, even if they don't care about being number one. They're the best. Like they like to use Joe Rogan as an example because he's the number one podcaster in the world. But he wasn't trying to be a podcaster. He was just talking to people, getting friends and talking about different topics, right? Because he's an EJEP, right? So he likes people, he likes friends, and he likes to gather information, right? And turns out that's what makes you to be the best podcaster. That's why he's number one, even though he's the number four, you know.
Yeah. Look, that does take me to one point I was considering talking about in this like OG catch up thing.
Yeah, go for it, man.
So I'm not a class member, so I don't have the latest information. I've appreciated this
Sure.
refresh on the view, but like from what I have seen, I have watched a couple more recent OPS videos, like the Denzel Washington one and some other ones, and they were talking about number ones. The perspective I got from those videos was that they admire successful ones, which I've actually taken personally a bit of a disgust view to. I think even with the Joe Rogan thing, it led me to considering that position. The only thing I want to add, I've gone nowhere with this. The only thing I want to add is a lot of people that number one, yeah, there's a mix of talent, but there's also a mix of luck, and that can't be ignored. There's an element of chance, whether it was having enough money to start with confidence, having the right network of people, having the right viral opportunity, unrelated things that you'd never even be aware of,
Right.
including being, there's just so many things that contribute to someone being number one. Then obviously you have to sustain that position. I can appreciate if you're talking about sustaining the number one position, that's a different conversation. But to enter into the top 10 space, to admire those people because of that success, I think that really can lead a lot of people down a undesirable rabbit hole. That's it.
Yeah, no, I think luck is definitely a big factor. Like you can't overrule the fact that there is such thing as luck, you know. Right place, right time, right?
Yeah.
You know, you got lucky roll of the dice, you got the lucky numbers, you know. So
at the same time, you can't use luck as a reason for saying I'm unsuccessful because luck hasn't been on my side. You got to be able to maximize what's in your control. But like I said, to admire people that are in the top spot and not talk about luck, and whether Dave and Shan do, I haven't come across any content that supports that they do. Again, I'm not a class member.
I think this is what makes you number two though, because you're like, when you're saying that just because you haven't been lucky, it's not an excuse. So part of the trait of number two is no excuses, right? Like don't, you know, because I think one of the things that they said about fours and threes is they don't take ownership. You know, so they're more likely to blame than to take ownership of what happened as a result of demon responsibility, especially number threes. Because number fours, they have it as third, so eventually they do learn it. But yeah, no. So what you just said definitely makes a lot of sense. I think I don't know if you noticed, but Shan is the number one actually, and Dave's the number two. So that's pretty cool to learn that. And then they have
okay, interesting. I don't know if I would have picked that.
And what else was there? Anyways, I forgot my train of thought, so I'm gonna go move on to.
Wow, is that the first time ever?
What's that?
That you've lost your train of thought?
I always lose my train of thought. I know it's a joke. So dude, what has your progress been like with your feminine FI at the bottom? Like what that I know it's a weird question to ask. This is like it's your identity, right? But it's like values. But yours is feminine. So do you find yourself that your values are still shifting? Or do you have more concrete values now as you get older that you kind of adhere to and kind of honor, you know, and you never betray?
Well, I've used analogies before on this channel, which I still prescribe to. So values feel like a line in the sand. That analogy, for some reason, really speaks to me. There's some times I have gotten to a decision point and you're literally at a go or no go. and I can feel my heart racing, and I know, and I listen to my body in those moments. And for me, that really turns any type of wishy-washiness around a choice, or which is then guided by values, into okay, part of the character with where I am today is this is not an acceptable position for me. Even there's some things in this space I just won't share with an online forum. Some of them have extremely lifelong impact for individuals. I just won't go into it, but the ones that are less meaningful, but then also carry less weight when I say them, is like even stuff like overtaking a truck with oncoming traffic, you know, and you have a near miss. There's a moment before you decide to do that overtake where you go, should I, shouldn't I? And then you do it. And if you make it, well, obviously I'm here. There's an adrenaline you feel afterwards. You go, holy shit, I shouldn't do that again. That type of moment, that's often really solidifies that FI for me. The rest of it is, I guess, a process of trial and error, experimentation, sometimes forced experimentation. I guess I'm not trying to use tester language, but I guess it's gone into that with a double feminine FI. So I don't know, maybe when I first started getting into OPS, which 2018, you said was the interview. I can't believe it's been that long. At the time, I was doing a lot of diary note taking just to explore thoughts. So I had recurring thoughts, not dreams, recurring thoughts, and so then I'd write them out and see what develops in that flow. And once again, that was a way of, for me, testing through a series of emotions and values. With today, I have what I would describe as I think the way that I'd choose to describe it today to convey for you is, if you think about color, but I'm going to have to do it in computer language. So you got black and white, which is one bit. And then as you expand the shades, you move up to more and more colors till you get to whatever. What I want to say is I would say not black and white anymore when it comes to values, things I stand for, things I won't stand for or tolerate or intercept, intervene with. I've got a lot of solidity behind that and would be comfortable communicating some of those things. But there are still very nuanced elements of those that I'm discovering as I journey through. So one example is, you're talking about the leadership thing. Like, that's one of the conflicts I have at the moment, where I'm at a point, I see myself producing the most value when I'm guiding a team of people. I'm at a point where I can transfer my expertise and skill set and actually amplify that through people. So it's not leading people for the sake of saying, hey, you know, in Western society, this is a value, a desired and high and an increased pay type of position. It's a case of, I can actually do more through the sum of others than myself. And what I've seen is a lot of people can't do that, right? Now, that's led me to a situation where I have confidence in my leadership for others. What I don't enjoy is management. I don't enjoy dealing with people's bullshit. And so that's a source of conflict for me in the value space, because those two things need to coexist, but I don't want to coexist with them. And then if you can't coexist directly with both leading people and then managing the bullshit, then what layers can you put to intervene? You know, for example, having a person that's an intermediary to deal with all the HR type stuff, for example. I'm just trying to put this into an experience set that you may be able to more readily appreciate and understand. So that's where I'm at with the values. So that's that type of nuance for me is by experience, by feel, and they get to that line in the sand overtaking the truck moment.
Okay. So you don't have patience for people's bullshit. What do you mean by people's, like, what is bullshit? Like, what is your definition of people's bullshit? Like, is it like when they bring their home drama to work and it gets in the way of work, or is it something?
No. I guess this is number two speak potentially, but I'm all about being accountable and holding people accountable. So if we've agreed that this is our contributions, you need to uphold it. Now, obviously, there's certain things that you can't plan for. Like for me, there's such a given that I don't even talk about them. Like for me, that's not even a discussion point. So you know, if you said your grandma died, well, yeah, the rest of us will figure out a way to do it.
Right.
But that, like for me, that's not even something that I have to think about. That's why I don't talk about it. But like, if someone just hasn't planned out, or they've underestimated what's required and they've taken. Look, it's very subjective, as you point out. I can appreciate that. And it's an experience thing. But like I said, if you and I have sat down and we said that you're going to produce a blog article in a couple of days, and we've talked about all the inputs that you need to do it on time, and then you haven't because you haven't followed through those inputs, and then you haven't actually identified that you're behind on those things and asked for support, we're going to have a problem.
I see. So if people don't pull their weight based on something that they promise that they will do, then that's when the problem comes in. And then based on
I'm not shy about dealing with that.
Oh, no, that's probably a good thing. So, you know, I'm pretty sure like management loves you to crack down on those people. But it's kind of funny that you mentioned that because if you look at the social type, you know, only 2 out of 4 actually cares about being responsible for the set deadline, right? Which is the 1s and 2s essentially. Threes will do it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but the key here is it's not my deadline. We've sat down together and you've contributed to what you can do. So I think like, and this is the difference for me with leadership and management. Management tells, right? That leads itself or caters itself to a completely different set of challenges to resolve. But in this case, you know, look, where I have to constantly explore leadership with the kids, you know, and with my kids, it's constant give and take because they're learning and fumbling their way through, and like with a business, you've got to split your time between a whole bunch of different things, right? So you've got 24 hours in the day. Obviously, you need to sleep, you need to eat, some other things. But then with the time you do have committed to work, you've got to designate how you're going to split your time to keep that business afloat.
Right.
You know, some of it will be business development, actually doing work, invoicing, a whole bunch of other things, R&D, whatever it is. It's the same with working with a group of people, whether it's kids, friends, colleagues, whatever. There's a percentage of time for mentoring, coaching, doing the work, chilling, right? And with me, I don't track people that are in my sphere of influence. I don't track time. I don't care about time. I care about results.
Right.
And the thing is, I'm very transparent about that. I'm very consistent. So I've had a lot of feedback, and I'm very comfortable in my approach. Put it like that.
I interviewed a number 3, and I'm not shitting on number 3s. They're really good at what they do. That's why we have so many specialized people. Essentially, especially in the the healthcare department. So the world definitely needs them. But I remember I was talking to a number 3 during one of my interviews, and he said to me, "I'm gonna work really hard and hit all the milestones, right? But if I don't get feedback from management, I'm gonna start letting it slip until they get on his ass, essentially. So they're only going to do as much work as what they feel like they could get away with. And if they get a lot of praise, because number 3s, they're also savior 1s. They're 3s and 1s, right? So they have a lot of ego also. So if you tell them if you give them a lot of praise, like, hey, you're the best, you're really good, then they'll work hard again. But they always need that constant praise from others, telling them how good they are, how awesome they are at this one thing that they're doing. And if they're not getting feedback, they're not going to work that hard, and the work is going to slip, and they won't feel bad at all that it's slipping. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of interesting that that's how it works. And I think David Shan also said that threes and fours thrive off positive reinforcement, while ones and twos thrive off negative reinforcement, right? So for me, for example, being a two, I thrive off negative reinforcement a lot. I think it's more like, maybe it's like 60-40, right? So when someone says shit to me, I'm like, oh yeah, screw you. I'll show you, like, but it's like, but sometimes when people give me like a positive feedback, I'm kind of like distrustful, especially if there's too many of it, you know? Like if it's like like I said, if it's like 60-40, you tell me how shitty I am, and you give me like one positive feedback, that's perfect. I love that. Right? But you have to tell me how, like, tell me 4 times why I'm shit, and then 1 time why I'm good. And then that's like a good balance, But like the threes and fours are the opposite. You have to keep like pumping them up, right? You have to like tell them, hey, you were really good at this time. I don't know why your work this time around is not as good, because I see what you can do. You were really good, So it's like a different kind of communication style that would like motivate someone to work harder. I know it sounds kind of weird, right? But like,
No, not at all. I mean, I can definitely relate to that with the teams that I've been involved with and coordinate. I haven't thought about it as the 4 types, obviously, because I didn't even know about them, but I definitely have group people that need constant cheerleading. There's people that need constructive criticism. That's how I've framed it previously. I definitely, in the past, responded much better to constructive criticism. I'm not going to call it negative feedback. To be honest, I've rarely received it. Positive feedback when I've received it, yeah, I have in the past thought, what's triggering this? I didn't actually think it was my defense guard against positive feedback. What I thought was, in Western culture, things are changing now, but from 15, 20 years ago, it definitely wasn't culturally normal to pass on positive praise.
right.
I think that's a consistent theme. What I'd say anyway for me now is I had a very bad experience with that negative feedback loop as of like 2 years ago. It's led to some trauma that's still around, because it was too vague. And it was vague because I think it was used specifically as a motivational tool. It wasn't actually reflective of true state. So like, I'll hear negative or constructive criticism feedback, and then I will try to transpose that into how does this map out to what we're doing, so I can get it addressed. When I can't figure out that loop, it puts me on a self-destruct loop, because with that low FI, I'm thinking, okay, I value this person's opinion, but I can't see how it plays out.
Right.
And I stuck in nowhere land. Like I said, it set me on a self-destruct loop. So since then, I've definitely encouraged myself more to rely less on other people's feedback and rely on my own observations and back my own opinion on where the quality level is at. And I use the judgment more to make sure that the stakeholder or end user is satisfied, but I also back myself up that if I'm satisfied and you're not, then perhaps you're the one that's wrong. And I wasn't willing to have that that contrast before. With the positive feedback as well, the amount of positive feedback I've received in the past month is crazy and unprompted too. And what I've seen is the way I deal with positive feedback is also quite different to, like, I don't brush it off anymore. It doesn't actually mean anything to me, to be honest. The positive feedback means nothing to me, but I accept that it's that person has a great intent. It might mean a lot for them to have said something, and so I allow them to have that moment and develop it out. but it actually does for me. I'm completely flat.
Like neutral. You're like the same
Yeah.
before they said it.
Yeah. So before, like, I'd cut it off because I was like, good thoughts. But like now, it's like, yeah, I really appreciate that. You know, I'm really happy working with you, and I play it out. Let that moment actually happen and share it with them. But like I said, it's meaningless to me.
I see. You're doing it for the other person, not for you.
Yeah.
I see. That makes sense. Yeah. Well, if they're pleased with your work, right, that's a good thing. I think the
no. These are people that report to me. So, yeah.
Oh, your employees then.
Sort of. Some of them are stakeholders I'm doing work for, and some of them are people that work for me. Yeah. But it's the context of the conversation, which I'm not going to share. These are very legitimate comments.
So when you get thrown in that loop, you said it's because it's vague, right? So that means, so if you got a concrete criticism, it's fine. But if it's like a vague criticism, it's kind of confusing. And then you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, because then it's a dig of character, right? And it's like, well, I already know. I always know where my pecking order is, right? And I know I'm at the top. I know that, right? So when someone's now saying you're shit and I can't substantiate it through work, they're saying I'm shit.
Okay. And so what do you do with that then? If that's how you're taking?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like in that case, it set me in a self-destruct loop. Yeah. It's only happened to me once. But like looking back at it now, that person, I'm very certain, was just using that as a generic motivation tool. Like a lot of people, you know, they just do things because someone says it works. So try this, you know. And so
right.
It's not fit for purpose. You know, I need something bespoke.
Right. Okay. So I want to ask you though, if someone were to criticize you or not criticize you, attack you, but it's either because you have TE, if someone attacks your work versus someone attacks your character, how would you respond to each scenarios? Like character attack versus like a, you know, how you an attack on your work. How would you react? Would you act very differently?
I have very little. I think I want to believe, and I strongly believe, I have little care about attacks on work. For me, that's a neutral thing. Where I have resistance to attacks on work is one, if it's going to create me bucketloads of rework, then I may try and resist. Or two, if there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what the issue is. But if there's an understanding of what the work is and it's subpar, then yeah, then it'll get redone. And I'll get that coordinated, and I don't have a problem with it. I don't take it personally. I'm actually grateful for it. Character, the first filter is, do I respect the person? First filter is, do I respect the context of the comment? Then do I respect the person's feedback? And if both those align, then yeah, I'll take the comment quite seriously.
I see. So if you don't care about the person, then you don't care about the personal attack then.
Well, when the reason I say that is if like I'm on a train station and a person starts abusing my character at the that I've never met before, why would I take that to heart?
Right. That's true.
Someone might, you know, someone that's extremely like double DE, perhaps they would, but I won't. I don't care.
Okay. What if it's someone,
you know, or if I'm eating meat and there's a protester, I don't care. I don't know you. I've chosen to make that value decision to consume that product. I don't care.
Okay.
And I live with a vegetarian, by the way. And I eat vegetarian a lot of the time, so I'm not saying I'm pro meat. I'm just trying to give a very blunt.
You're not doing it to trigger people on purpose.
Yeah. I'm not trying to be provocative. I've just gone down the bear blocks or something that's translatable.
Right. Although that would be funny though if you did it on purpose, just to mess with people, you know. All right, cool, man. So before we wrap up this little catch up, do you have any last minute questions for me or something that you want to address before we talk? I think that was pretty good catch up moment in terms of like where you are right now. It seems like you're in a different place though than when I first spoke to you. You were working for a mining company, I think, originally, and now you're in a completely different place now, right? So
No, well, I'm still a mining professional.
okay,
Yeah, that hasn't changed. I've either been mining or oil and gas. But yeah, every 3 years I swap cars where I work.
I see, I see.
Yeah, so I've been in my current place now since November, and I've considered leaving about 4 times since then.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah. There's been a lot of there's been it's there's been a lot of challenges working here, but they're not challenges that I was expecting. But what I've learned from my journey to date is I've actually instead of bottling it up, that blast last mentality, and handing in my notice one day, saying, "Look, I've gone somewhere else, and I'm not willing to negotiate." I've been very open a couple of times now, saying I'm going to leave. I don't like these things that are happening, and I'm going to leave. And or you've got an opportunity to address this. Otherwise, I'm out. And I've had those conversations twice now for two completely different things, and it's actually worked out really favorably. So that's like me attempting to be a bit more double deciderish, I guess, where you talk about the FI. Well, I know I value and understand my self-worth,
Right.
and I'm not scared to have that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're speaking up too, which is awesome. Like the blast last thing, right? Like you communicated like something's not working out for you, and you said it, instead of just like keeping it inside, right? So because like it's one thing to like know your value, but one thing just to tell the other human being what's going on, right? So I think
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's definitely a big blast last growth.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like, not that I want to go too much into organizational culture, but like the first, I needed I when I took this job in November, I had a very specific checklist for what I wanted out of where I was going to work next,
Yeah.
and it was more a place to recover. I wanted to do what I do well, but I didn't want to do much. Right. So I don't commit to much, but what I do is still at the same quality and integrity bar. And so I had a few conditions for where I wanted to work. So I could do that. But aside from that, I didn't care what I did. It was just a recovery place. Because like I said, I went through a self-destruct loop. And I just needed to recover. And like I knew this place was the right place because when I had the interview, I ran the interview as the candidate. It was hilarious. I just knew this place had weak leadership, and so I could go there, do my thing, and yeah, the what I did wasn't prepared for is not only was the leadership poor, but the culture terrible. Like this is actually the worst place I've ever worked, which is ironic because it's not a toxic place. Like I won't go into detail in a public video. I could tell you in private afterwards, but if you're interested, but like this is the worst place I've ever worked at, yet they don't do anything that you describe as being on the news. It's just like that really, really passive aggressive culture. So you don't have direct evidence is what I'm saying, but fundamentally it is terrible. And there's a lot of for me, it's quite amazing. I'm actually really glad I've worked here and stayed and had that opportunity to speak up and give a go or no go or leave or stay position, because after the self-destruct loop, I kind of decided I'm just happy being a doer. I don't want to be a leader manager anymore. It's just too much stress. Look, not because of work, but because my priority is family, and I don't want work to come home.
Right.
So once again, I know that boundary, right? So for me, when I leave work, I leave work. That's the intention. Coming here and seeing such a, honestly, it's like in the movies. You get this movie where the main character comes into some Mighty Ducks team, a bunch of misfits, and they're doing crap, but they're having fun, but they're doing absolute garbage.
Yeah.
And then the coach comes in, brings discipline, and suddenly now they're competing for the nationals. Honestly, that story is what I've gone through.
Oh,
And
really?
so it's yeah, honestly, like everyone's just a bunch of misfits and yeah, motley crew.
And you
But
got them straightened out then?
oh yeah. It's reignited a fire, and that's why I said to you, there's a dilemma that I'm still processing through about
Right.
leadership versus management, because before this point I wasn't interested in being in this space anymore, and now I am back to being interested in it, and I'm trying to figure out how do I be in that space but make it work for me, because again I know where my limitations are and my boundaries are what I don't want to cross. So I'm still trying to figure out that puzzle, and create a space where I can give people that time and support, but not have it dwell into my personal time. Because I found management to be a very 24/7 job, which I'm just not interested in.
So I guess you're trying to be more of a leader as opposed to a manager. You're trying to,
Correct.
yeah,
Correct.
you're trying to take the group and make them produce, but not with not you holding their hand per se, like a manager would, you know.
Yeah.
I see. Okay,
Yeah.
that's super cool, man. I like how you used the Mighty Ducks analogy. That really like made a lot of sense. So that was really
Yeah.
all
It
right,
very
cool.
much feels like that. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I got nothing more to say. Yeah.
All right, so I'll wrap up the interview here for everyone. I'll talk to you after this, but yeah. So thanks again, Alan, for coming out and giving us a yeah
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So sorry. I thought that was the end of the question. I did have one thing I wanted to raise. There's a theory that I've been thinking about recently as I've tried explaining a few things to my wife. Um, I don't have a definitive position on it, but when, like, for example, so I'm a project manager. So like for me, I think about timing of how to do things. And it could be
Yeah.
small tasks. If you think about cooking, once again, I'm trying to use something that everyone understands and takes
Okay.
home. Cooking, it could be as simple as you gotta put the food in. You gotta okay, let me take a step back. Some people might look at it as you gotta cook the steak for 3 minutes per side. Right. Other people like me look at it is you need to preheat the pan. Before the pan's preheated, you need to make sure it's clean. Then you need to put your conductive heat, oil, butter, whatever you want on the pan at the steak, 3 minutes seasoning, all that. Where I'm trying to communicate to is people that are good at a specific type of function. The way that I'm perceiving it, my theory that I'm building is the layers of depth, right? So like I might look at all those steps, and it doesn't produce me with mental overwhelm. Whereas someone that has the lower SI like yourself, when you start thinking about all those steps, that potentially it could lead to mental overwhelm. How do you process them? How do you line it all together? Whereas for me, I just see it as one piece. It doesn't consume any processing power to have a look at all that depth. So then when you stage all those events together, it's done quickly, easily, effectively, efficiently. And the reason I was thinking about this was when it comes to music, some people, if you think of an orchestra that's got like 60 plus instruments in it, some people are able to hear all the different instruments in parallel and how they overlay, right? So they've got the ability to process each of those individual steps effectively, efficiently, without overwhelm. I can't do that. For me, I just get the lump, right? I hear the bass, the rhythm of the bass, and everything else is just one flattened sum of music.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Whereas other people have that layered depth. Or if you think about it like in photos, you do thumbnails for YouTube, so you probably understand that with pictures, there's layers. So some people when they're drawing art, they can visualize the steps on how to take a blank circle and draw it into a face that looks lifelike. I don't have that ability. I just see a lump. So
Yeah.
like my drawing comprehension is very poor or
Right.
average,
Right.
because I don't see the steps on how to get there. But when it comes to managing tasks and how to get things moved from A to B, visualizing space, I've got that layered ability where I can see it. So that, like, this is then like I just wanted to share that this is how I'm viewing the different abilities of people to undertake these cognitive functions. I'm not going to go to the position of David Shan saying I don't know what the current position is, where at one point it was you can only do 4 out of the 8 and the other 4 are simulated, or the demon. I don't know. I don't care about that layer of heat thou shall. At the moment, all I'm saying is everyone should be able to plan out, if you're going to paint a room, this is how you paint it, right? Some people, for painting a room, will get really stuck in the steps and they don't consider the time. People like me consider the steps, time, sequence.
Yeah.
Other people think, well, all you need is painting, you throw it at the wall.
Well, I'm Play Blast, so I'm the guy that's just gonna start painting the wall without without planning it. It's not. I'm not saying I don't plan. It's just that for sensory stuff, it's a pain in the ass for me. So, especially with SI at the bottom, right? So, if it's SI related, unless it's like something that I'm interested in, like cooking, for example, is something that I'm interested in. So I will meticulously kind of more plan. Like I'm thinking, okay, I need all these ingredients. Where can I buy them first? So that's how far I think, right? I'm like, okay, so I have to go to this grocery store. This store, this store, this store has it, and then I do my route, grab all the ingredients, and I'm like, okay, this recipe takes this much hours. This recipe takes this much time. What if I want to cook them at the same time? What's the order that I should start preparing them so that I can finish them roughly at the same time, to maximize my output, right? So yeah, and then I'm able to plan that for cooking specifically because I'm interested in cooking, right? And I cook a lot for me and my girlfriend. Not as much right now, but like in the past, I've definitely done it a lot. The music
But what I
thing.
mean is, what I mean is, like, going to the music thing, I could sit down and practice listening to orchestral music for 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. I've got a genetic cap on how much I can process with the separation of music. I mean, I listen to music every day, right? I'm genetically capped out, and that's okay. I don't have that ability to process as many layers as other people. And it's the same in the gym, right? Some muscle bellies are different to others. Like, there's only so far you can go.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of your question then, or is it a comment?
Oh, no. So it's just my underlying theory. I haven't heard people explain it in that way before. Whether there's any whether there's any newness to it or not, I don't really care, because I build my own models and theories.
I see.
But that's where I'm at in prescribing the I suppose the genetic potential of cognitive functions. So it's not a case of whether you can or you can't. It's a case of whatever you do, there's still a genetic cap on where you can take it.
Yeah, I mean they've talked about it in the class, like Dave, for example, will say that even though he's Savior FI, EPs with FI second, even if they're jumpers, they have a higher genetic potential because it's higher up in the function stack still, right? So your function stack does still matter in terms of your genetic potential, in terms of what you can accomplish. And I look at it as a balloon. That's the best way to explain it. Like a water balloon, or even like a one that you pump with the air. So it can get bigger. And let's say it's like a really strong like rubber, so it can expand for quite a bit. But the starting container is already preset, like in terms of like your first function is like a huge balloon, while like your fourth function is like a smaller balloon. So it can expand and become quite decent, but it will never be as good as your first. Like your TE, for example, will always be the best, and it'll be better than everyone's TE, especially your masculine also, right? Like,
so the difference then is, or the nuance, because I can see we're talking the same thing. I suppose from my own selfish lens, what this analogy specifically about the layers allows me to do is, again, empathize or sympathize, whatever the right term is, but understand that some people are going to be capped at their ability to process the depth or the layers, because they literally can't, they have no ability to see what I'm trying to get them to see.
Exactly.
Because whereas I didn't really have that appreciation before until I thought about it from those layers. Just like if the orchestra person's trying to tell me, oh, did you hear the trombone kick in at that point? I'm like, what? And so, but I have to be aware that when people, there's not just me communicating with others, there's also when others are communicating to me, they might be sharing a depth that I've actually got zero visibility on. Right. So for me, it was quite profound.
Yeah. Especially for you, it's going to be harder because you have NI, right? So they use NI and NE. Like, NE's making sure that everyone understands, while NI is like, you might share your concept, but no one gets what you're saying, right? Because it's like, it's NI, it's like your personal concept that you've kind of put together, right, organized. Well, the NE, like I was watching an interview with Bill Nye, the science guy, this morning, and he's an INTP with NE. So when he was explaining stuff, he was using analogies to make it easy for everyone to understand, like, what he was trying to explain, scientifically. Like because he was talking about like there's a new moon of Saturn that has like water, and then they found phosphorus or something, and then apparently phosphorus is required for, like, I forgot the exact thing, DNA binding or something. I'm not sure. Like I'm
Yeah.
So he was using analogies to explain what it was, and then I was like, oh, he's using NE right now. He's trying to make sure that the audience understands what he's trying to say, right? Because it's NE, right? It's not NI, right? So, and then that's why, like, Dave and Chan, they have like all these inside jokes that no one gets, but they made a glossary. They have a new website, by the way. So they have a new website, and then they have a glossary now of all the inside jokes to explain all the NI stuff that they're saying.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
look, I'm glad I mentioned this, because it's insight into where my Blast Last is evolving towards. I didn't recognize the personal attachment to the NI, but I can appreciate that, and so really now I'm emphasizing that I want to blast, and how to get that blast more readily absorbed. Yeah, cool. That's awesome. I do have one question for you. I don't know what your ability to answer is, because obviously we've met multiple times over the past couple of years, but with where this conversation's been today, do you still prescribe to the MMTSE, play, consume, sleep, blast typing?
for yourself, for you?
Yeah. Who else? No, for you, Kendrick.
No, I'm so confused by your question, man. I was like, MMTSE.
No. Like I'm making an assumption every time you talk to someone, you're visually auditing whether they align with David Chan's typing. So now you're talking to someone 5 years, whatever it is, removed from that typing. You've said that today is quite different to that first time, right? So with that difference, like where does that take you for the typing integrity?
No, I think your typing is still 100% as accurate as the first day I've spoken to you. The only difference is that you're more loose now, because the first time I spoke to you, you're very controlled. So that's like the best contrast that I could say. And that could be because you didn't know me back then, masculine TE. So, and you're in public, so you're more protective and stuff. Versus now, like, me, we've kind of talking on and off on Facebook over the years. A lot of community members also, so it's not like it's like a big mystery. It's not a big mystery anymore. You kind of know who's who, right? So it's not a threat anymore. It's like it's in your known box, essentially. I think you still have some blast last problems though. No offense. Because like when you talk, because I noticed when I was doing some interviews with the INTJs, especially the blast sleeps. I noticed with the blast sleeps, when they talk, they're very precise and concise. And then they'll say something, and then everything kind of fits in that like sentence that they said. It's well like organized and thought out. For you, you use play to talk, right? So you'll throw a bunch of random stuff, and then you kind of leave it to the other person, me in this case, to kind of like organize it together to see what you're trying to say. So and I think you're still doing that. Because like for example, like earlier when you were explaining to me you know, the cap, right? Like your genetic cap. You could have just said, you know, do you think each function has a genetic cap where this is as much as you can go? But then you went to this big elaborate thing and you threw like a bunch of like random examples. And then I'm like, okay, no, I get what you're saying. So I still understood what you're saying because you're still sensory clear, right? But you didn't say it like super concise, you know, because like you're still blast last at the end of the day, and you're not as concise as you could be. Even though ironically, your blast is your first two function, and if you do master it, you can be amazingly good at being concise at delivering the information. But it doesn't seem like you've practiced it still enough that you can deliver it as precise as it could be. You no offense, man. You know.
Oh no, none taken at all. None
Yeah.
taken at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Look, to be fair, they're I support that. They're not thoughts that I've processed. I must say, I do find it fascinating that there's people in this personality space that can talk with so much confidence behind the thoughts. I find it a very subjective terrain, and so like there's an element of caution behind ideas that I find really hard to solidify, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean, your lead ST, so it makes a lot of sense that you know, it has to be concrete. You can't just be woo-woo out of your butt. Otherwise, you know, like you're not gonna be taken seriously, especially by you. You know, I mean, you do have NF activated. It's not like it's missing, and you do have that inner philosopher in you, and you are aware of the NF stuff. It's like when we're talking and stuff, you kind of brought in some NF stuff in between. So it's not like it's missing, but because you do have ST and NF, you do have those first three available in your function stack or your animal stack. Sorry, you're more balanced with it. Like the NF has more of a supporting role to the concreteness. But it's not missing. So you still know that it exists, right?
Yeah.
And but the weird thing about you is you're very logical also. So it kind of makes sense. It's kind of weird that you're NT last. Because I cannot not see you not figuring, you know, NT is about problem solving and solutions, right? So I cannot not see you coming up with a solution to a problem. I can actually see you are pretty good at it, if anything. Like, I think the only problem with Blast you have is being concise with your delivery of what you're trying to say. That's literally it. Because I think the NT side, I think you can do it. I think you can figure things out. I don't think I think you're pretty good at it.
Yeah, but it's yeah, no, I know I am because well again, figuring out what type of problem I think is the first question. Everyone's good at problem solving certain things,
right?
In the line of work that I do, the problem solving is top tier. Now, the part though is the double feminine sleep, the experimentation before the problem solver, and that one's a total bitch. And this is part of what you observe when we're going back to that genetic cap. Like in my head, for this idea, theory, observation that I've had that struck to me as an epiphany, the literal depth of the idea is there's layers to this. Right, that's it. That's all I've got to work with, right?
Yeah.
Like honestly. And so then when I'm saying that, I have at least enough awareness to know, well, that could mean absolutely anything to you. So then I go on the blast last ramble to try and paint a picture. But my starting point is there's layers. That's it.
Right.
Right. So for anyone that is that's the from I don't know if that's a curse of all blast last or if that's a symptom of the double feminine sleep. I don't know, but that's what I'm working with.
Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, that does make it makes even more sense if you think about it, because your sleep is what essentially organizes your blast, right? So if your sleep is double feminine, how the hell are you supposed to deliver it as compactly as possible when it's so you know, movable to begin with, right? So that's
and that's what I find, and that's what I'm saying. It's like for me personally, every time we're doing any type of discussion in this personality space, because I find I consume new information, which adjusts that sleep world. I just find it amazing people can blast so fluidly. Like for me, it completely disrupts everything, and I start from scratch. Whereas in my professional world, it's much more fixed boundaries, right? So I can blast very effectively. I mean, I get told all the time, people want me to do the communication. So I don't know.
I see. No, that makes a lot of sense. I guess it depends on the space and how familiar you are. So,
yeah. In fact, like, you know, when we're talking about FI, ironically, like, again, in what I do, this is true, all right? The value that and this might be more ST than NT in fairness, probably is the ST. I actually value the core value I bring is the translation tool between different parties. I can absorb what everyone's actually looking for and then bring it across as a common language. And that's how I bring teams of people together that are all talking over each other.
right. Yeah.
I see that as actually my greatest strength, which might not be blast per se. It's probably more the play than anything. But there's an element of blast in there well, that's how I've seen it to date. But after now, I'm not sure. Once again, sleep processing. I'm now readjusting my world.
Yeah, I think it's probably your play and your consume together, like being able to see that, like the different communication style and being a translator. It is true. Like an NF person talking to an ST person, they're gonna butt heads for sure, especially if they don't have those two in the first three, right? So, and then there's you who can like explain to the other person in their own language what the other person's saying. So it makes sense what you're saying, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna wrap up this interview here, and then I can chat with you after. So, peace out for this part.
Here's mine.